Imagine waking up every morning knowing that before you even leave your house, you'll have to make dozens of tiny decisions that most people never think about. Should you mention your girlfriend at work? Should you change the pronoun when talking about your weekend? Should you hold her hand while walking through the mall? Should you tell your doctor the truth? Should you be yourself? Or should you protect yourself? Now imagine making these decisions every single day. Not for a week, not for a month, but for years. That constant calculation slowly becomes something much heavier. It becomes anxiety. It becomes exhaustion. It becomes depression. And that's exactly why today's conversation matters. Because contrary to what many people believe, lesbian women aren't more likely to struggle with mental health because of who they love. They're more likely to struggle because of what they experience. Today, we're uncovering the silent mental health crisis affecting lesbian women, a struggle that often goes unnoticed, misunderstood, or dismissed. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why one invisible burden can change an entire life. Let me introduce you to someone we'll call Maya. She's fictional, but her story is built from the experiences of thousands of real women. Growing up, Maya always felt different. While her friends talked about their crushes on boys, she laughed along, pretending to relate. She convinced herself it was just a phase. Maybe she hadn't met the right guy. Maybe she was confused, because that's what everyone around her suggested. Television told her, school told her, relatives told her, religion told her. Society had already written a script for her life. Fall in love with a man, get married, have children, live happily ever after. The only problem? She wasn't the main character in that script. By 19, Maya finally accepted that she was a lesbian. She expected coming out to be the hardest part. It wasn't. Her parents didn't completely reject her. Her closest friends stayed. Nobody threw her out of the house. From the outside, everything looked fine. But that's where the invisible struggle began. Every introduction became stressful. Every family gathering became a performance. Every new job interview raised one terrifying question. What if they find out? She laughed at jokes that hurt her. She stayed quiet when someone made a homophobic comment. She edited stories about her weekends. She replaced my girlfriend with my friend, little by little. She disappeared from her own life. The world didn't ask her to hide. It simply reminded her every day that hiding was safer. Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called minority stress theory. At first glance, it sounds complicated, but it's surprisingly simple. Think about carrying a backpack. Every stressful experience in life adds another stone. Bills, relationships, family, work. Everyone carries some weight. Now imagine someone quietly adding extra stones to your backpack every single day. One for discrimination, one for fear of rejection, one for hiding your identity, one for hearing people insult people like you, one for wondering whether it's safe to simply exist. Eventually, you're carrying far more than everyone else. Not because you're weaker, because your backpack is heavier. That's minority stress. And here's the frightening part. Many lesbian women don't even realize they're carrying it, because it's been there for so long that it feels normal. Imagine walking into a doctor's office. You hesitate before answering questions about your partner. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you don't know how you'll be treated. Imagine starting a new job. Everyone talks about their husbands, their wives, their families, and you begin calculating. Should I tell them? Should I wait? Should I lie? That constant mental calculation consumes energy. Energy that should be spent living. Instead, it's spent surviving. And eventually, this invisible stress starts showing up in very visible ways. Research paints a heartbreaking picture. Nearly half of sexual minority adults screen positive for depression. Almost half. Rates of anxiety are dramatically higher than among heterosexual adults. Lesbian women are significantly more likely to experience generalized anxiety disorder. They're also more likely to experience long-term depression. And these numbers don't suddenly disappear with age. Older lesbian women continue to report much higher rates of depression than heterosexual women of the same age. Think about that. This isn't simply a difficult teenage phase. It's something many women carry throughout their entire lives. Researchers have also found something important. The problem isn't being lesbian. The problem is experiencing discrimination. Women who regularly experience rejection, prejudice, or harassment are much more likely to struggle with depression, anxiety, alcohol misuse, and substance abuse. The emotional pain eventually looks for somewhere to go. Sometimes it becomes drinking. Sometimes it becomes smoking. Sometimes it becomes complete emotional withdrawal. Sometimes it simply becomes silence. Here's what most people never witness: the panic attack before introducing your partner to family, the anxiety before posting a photo online, deleting comments before anyone else sees them, checking whether it's safe to hold hands, changing your voice, changing your clothes, changing your story. Eventually, you begin changing yourself. That's why many lesbian women describe feeling emotionally exhausted even when nothing bad happened that day. Because surviving doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes surviving looks like smiling all day while your nervous system never relaxes. One psychologist described it beautifully. Imagine living in a house where the fire alarm might go off at any moment. Even when it's quiet, you never completely relax. That's what chronic minority stress feels like. Your body remains prepared for danger, even when danger never comes. Eventually, anxiety becomes your normal. Thankfully, Maya's story doesn't end there. One afternoon, she finally asked herself a question. What if I'm not broken? That question changed everything. She found a therapist who understood LGBTQ+ experiences. For the first time, she didn't have to explain herself. She found friends who celebrated her instead of merely tolerating her. She found community. And something remarkable happened. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight. Neither did the depression. But the loneliness did. She stopped carrying everything alone. That's the power of being seen. Healing isn't pretending the world suddenly becomes safe. Healing is realizing you don't have to face an unsafe world by yourself. Community doesn't erase trauma. It makes recovery possible. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's video, it's this. Lesbian women are not struggling because they're lesbian. They're struggling because they've spent years navigating a world that often asks them to shrink themselves just to feel safe. That's a burden no one should have to carry. If you're a lesbian watching this, please know that your feelings are valid, your exhaustion makes sense, and asking for help is never a sign of weakness. If you're someone who loves a lesbian woman, a sister, daughter, friend, colleague, or partner, you have more power than you realize. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't advice. It's safety. It's listening without judgment. It's creating a space where they never have to wonder if they'll be accepted. Because every time someone feels safe enough to be completely themselves, that invisible backpack gets a little lighter. And maybe, one day, no one will have to carry it at all. If this video touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Awareness creates understanding. Understanding creates empathy. And empathy has the power to change lives. Thank you for watching. And remember, no one should have to hide to deserve peace.